In today's fast-paced digital world, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, the list is growing exponentially by the day. We are inundated with negativity on a level that we have never known before. But this idea of negative feedback and positive feedback and the implications it has for us as a human being far predates social media. There have been a lot of studies on how many positive comments it takes to offset a negative comment, and the results are quite varied. And I'm not going to go into all of the nuances of every one of them at this point, but one of the things that we have learned is, by and large, it takes 5 positive affirmations to overcome one negative piece of feedback. If we don't get if we don't get those 5 positives, the negative starts to gnaw at us more and more. And for some people, it may take more than 5. It depends on your personality. For some people, it might take 3 or 4, but 5 is a pretty good average. One of the things that was studied by a number of different people, probably one of the more important, is as a man by the name of John Gottman. And John Gottman studied married couples from before they were married, after they were married, long-term study. And there was, it was one of these things where they would video them and look at their interactions and make notes and draw conclusions about what was going on. And one of the things that they came out with, and it has been upheld over time, is that the number one predictor of divorce is not religious differences, it's not political differences, it's not differences over how one should raise their kids. Those things matter, but they're not the number one predictor. The number one predictor is the number of positive affirmations versus the number of negative critiques. And if it takes 5 positives to overcome one negative, and married couples who stay married long term typically have that balance or maybe more, the couples that got divorced on average had 0.77 positives to 1 negative, which means that for every 4 negative comments they would make about their spouse or to their spouse, they only gave 3 positives. And that discrepancy over time eroded the relationship. The same thing is true with our kids. I have not always been great at giving positive affirmation to my kids. I don't know that I gave a lot of negative critiques either, but it's one of those things that I didn't learn until later on. But if you look at, one of the things that you could look at is Adam Sandler's acceptance speech at his Mark Twain Prize ceremony. And in it, he credits to a very large part the continual positive affirmation from both his mother and his father. They thought he was the best singer, the best joke teller, the best this, the best ball player, the best whatever. And his 2 sisters did the same. And that overload of positivity made him in large part who he is today as a very successful comedian, movie star, and from all accounts, just a genuinely nice guy. On the other hand, I have sat in meetings at high school as an administrator with a student who is chronically in trouble. They are either disrupting class in one way or another, or they are being ugly to their teacher in the way they respond to their teacher, or they've had a problem with a student in the cafeteria, or they got into a fight, or we found a vape in their backpack, or just a whole range of issues. But one of the things that struck me was the number of times in the disciplinary hearing process where it's just me, the student, the parent or parents, and the hearing officer or the other person who's presenting the charges to me as the hearing officer. The number of times that a parent will literally go off on a kid. And I mean, not just, tell them what they did was wrong. I mean, yell and scream and threaten to hit and all manner of just unacceptable behavior. And the thought that goes through my head is, my God, if they're doing this in this meeting in front of other people, what are you putting up with in the house? And in large part, that dictates their behavior. They only know one way to get attention, and that's through negativity, because they haven't been taught much else. And so in those situations especially, pretty much in every situation, but in those situations especially, I would always try to end the meeting with these basic words to every student. This situation does not define you. This is going to go away as soon as you come back to school from your suspension, or as soon as you get back in the classroom from going to the alternative to suspension room for a couple of days. We're not going to think about this anymore because this doesn't define you. And sometimes you could see in their eyes the thank you that they're too afraid to say. So, how do we become people online and in person, face-to-face, who is sure to give more affirmation than negativity? A few things I think we could do. We don't have to do them all, but find a starting place. We need to prioritize positivity. Prioritize it. Not just in the way that you talk to your spouse, or not just in the way that you talk to your kid, but in the way you talk to the people at work, in the way that you talk to the drive-through person who's taking your money at McDonald's, the way that you talk to the barista who's pouring your coffee but get your name wrong on the coffee cup, the person who is standing at the exit door to Walmart, who you're not really sure if they're going to ask you to stop and, get all your stuff searched to make sure you're not stealing anything. They're just there to do their job. And if we can prioritize being positive in those instances, we will go a long way toward beginning to give more positive affirmation than negative critique. And another way is through mindful online engagement. If you're someone like me who's online a lot, it is so tempting to go down that rabbit hole of negativity. Not just giving negative comments on people's posts, but responding poorly when people give negativity to your post. It's one of the reasons why I left Facebook. It's not the only reason, but it's one of the reasons why I left Facebook. And it wasn't so much that people were attacking me. They were attacking each other in the comments to my post. This was a friend of mine. This was a friend of mine. And you would have thought World War III broke out. And all that did was just build up the anxiety inside of me to the point that I wanted to lash out and I wanted to tell them where to get off. And so leaving Facebook was a huge, huge help to me in that regard. And I would consider it to be part of the mindfulness that I'm talking about. But if you are still on Facebook, or if you're on Instagram, or if you're on Twitter, or whatever other social media site that you choose to be on a lot, just try to practice the fact that you don't have to respond to everybody. You don't have to respond to every single post. And it's okay to just unfollow people who are giving you a lot of angst. That's fine. And then we also need to learn how to give balanced critique. It can't all be negative. We have to learn how to balance the negative and the positive. One of the things that you learn early on in management and in being an administrator and in other ways of being over other people is this sandwich technique you probably are very familiar with. And that is that when you need to talk to somebody and you need to give them some negative feedback, you need to talk to them about the fact that they're late on their assignment, or you need to talk to them about the fact that, what they wrote for this particular ad campaign is not going to work, then you sandwich that. You give them some positive information, you talk about the negative, and then you come back to another positive, and you sandwich that negative between two positives. It's not a 5-to-1, but it's better than 0-to-1. And 9 times out of 10, that person is going to come out of the meeting thinking, okay, so I messed up, but they're not mad at me, and they're still okay with me, and I still have a job, so this isn't really the end of the world. So being able to practice that balanced critique, and that works online as well. I've had people who have left comments on this channel that I felt were unfair or negative. Maybe they didn't understand everything that I was trying to say. And rather than block them or lash out, I have tried to respond in a way that says, thank you for your comment. I appreciate the fact that you've brought this to my attention. Here's what I was thinking. Not sure it's exactly what you interpreted, but maybe that's on me. And I really appreciate the fact that you're a subscriber to the channel, and I hope you'll come back and watch the next video. And just de-escalate whatever it is, even if it's not really bad. Just de-escalate it because you're practicing mindful online engagement. One of the things that I have to practice on, and I'm doing a much better job, is self-compassion. I have spent a lifetime giving myself negative talk inside my brain. It's just who I am. Doesn't mean I have to be that person my entire life, but it's where I go to as a default. I'm not good enough to get this job. I will probably make a mess of this project at school. I don't know how to do this particular thing, and so I'm probably going to be really bad at it. And I just gear myself up for the worst all the time and keep myself in a constant state of anxiety and frustration, even when nobody else is giving me any negative feedback. In fact, it makes it hard for me to accept positive feedback because a lot of times I don't believe them. And so I have to work on that to give myself more self-compassion and to give myself a break and to offset my own negative thoughts with some positive thoughts. And then I think probably the last thing, maybe the most important thing is if you are stuck in this feeling of anxiety, if you feel like that this negativity is giving you some element of depression, if you're just not on top of your game, it is okay to seek support. It's okay to either phone a friend who you know is going to help you through this situation, or to spend more time with a person who you know has a more positive attitude than you. But it's also okay to go talk to a professional who can help you get to the root cause of why you're allowing this to happen to yourself. That's not an easy thing to do. It's not an easy thing to admit. But I've been there. I've sought out help more than once in a professional manner, and it has helped. So I hope that you'll give this some thought, maybe practice some of these things this week. And as you do, maybe leave me a comment about how that might have changed your outlook on a situation because you decided to react from a positive rather than react from a negative. Thanks for joining me. We'll talk to y'all next time.